Viewers, it's been 8 days since the preliminary report by AAIB in the horrific air crash of AI-171 has come out. And since then, what has followed is a concerted campaign to malign India. In fact, it's a vicious campaign that's against Indian aviation, Indian pilots, India itself. After all, there are global multi-billion-dollar interests that are at play. While we still do not fully know what happened inside the cockpit besides what came out in the preliminary report, which said that the fuel supply to the engine was shut down. It went from, and that could be because there is no clarity on it, even as both the pilots did not do it. That's what the preliminary report said. But what we do know now is that the Western media outlets have only one theory to push: blame the pilot theory. Though the two pilots had 18,000 hours of flying time between them, there is nothing in the preliminary report that pins the blame on the pilots. But that is what the Western media is doing, and that's our big focus. Before we get to the big questions and why this needs to be discussed in greater detail, let's first listen in to Union Aviation Minister, and then we decode this in greater detail.
I believe in AAIB. I believe in the work that they are doing. They have done a wonderful job in decoding the whole black box and getting the data out in India itself. It was a huge success for us because previous incidents, whenever the black box was seen to be damaged, it was always sent abroad to get the data out. But this is the first time that successfully AAIB has decoded everything. The data has been here. The preliminary report also has been seen. But making any comments until the final report has come, I don't think it is a good exercise on behalf of anyone. Regarding the incident and the investigation, we have to wait for the final report to come out before we say anything.
And that's our big focus this evening, viewers. The preliminary report hasn't pinned the blame on the pilots, but that's what Western media is doing. And that's the big question that we are asking. Why are Western media outlets pushing that pilot action theory? Why are these source-based leaks that are appearing in the Wall Street Journal, in Reuters? These unnamed sources, who are they? And why are those leaks coming in a very planned, concerted manner, defaming the pilots, even though there is no evidence right now to support that claim? These are unverified claims. Is there an effort to absolve global corporations? As I said, we do not know any detail besides what the preliminary finding was, that the fuel switch went from run to shut. And either of the two pilots didn't do it. That's what they said. One was asking the other. We don't know anything more than that. And finally, we ask, will legal notices by the pilots' bodies stop these unverified leaks by Western media outlets? And will they act as a catalyst to ensure that there's responsible reporting that takes place? Till we get to the bottom of this. And let's get in our two experts joining us this evening to talk more on this and understand as to why this is happening. More importantly, is there a way to stop this? Captain Kishore Chinta and Mr. Devesh Agarwal joins me on the broadcast. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for speaking to me on NDTV. And this is a question I pose to both of you, the big questions that we are asking. Captain Kishore, let me start with you. 8 days later, we still are only dealing with preliminary findings. But as far as these global media outlets are concerned, they know everything. Whether it is the NTSB saying, or whether it is any other global responsible aviation voice saying, none of this comes in the way of the agenda that Reuters, WSJ and others continue to peddle. Why?
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for having me on your show, and good evening, Devesh. So, to start with, we all know what the stakes are for Boeing. If even an iota of doubt of any technical glitch is there, Boeing probably runs back at least a decade back after the 737 MAX fiasco and the whistleblower and the Senate committee hearings and whatnot. They have probably $300-400 billion worth of orders which are at stake, and 1,200 aeroplanes of the 787 Dreamliner flying in the world. So the stakes are so high that whatever said and done, they have to stretch the narrative till the time the final report is out. So whatever is happening is a concerted effort, whether it's paid media releases or whether Wall Street Journal or a whole lot of other Western media outlets. It seems to be a concerted effort through YouTube channels and news reports and whatnot. What we need to understand is that this is precipitated primarily because of lack of a full disclosure of data as far as the CVR is concerned, vis-a-vis with the timestamp of the FDR data in the preliminary report. All of us agree that there has been a lot of questions left answered by the preliminary report, but whatever said and done, the AAIB has done what it could in the limited period of time after the data was downloaded. But they have issued a clarification that it is too early to say anything. They have lambasted the foreign media. NTSB is followed up, but it's a little too late once the damage has already been done. A good way to go forward would be to divulge all the cockpit voice recorder in sequence, probably through a press release or a media briefing, to shut the Western media once and for all.
Let's put that to Mr. Agarwal as well. Mr. Agarwal, you agree with what Captain Kishore is saying, that now what should be the future course from here on? What has actually impacted, many feel, is that this flow of official information has also been scarce. There's been absence of regular updates and briefings, which have aided this source-based leak machinery even further. How do we control it? Do we ensure that these false narratives are not peddled till the time there's an official confirmation? And secondly, ensure that these vested interests, whichever they may be, vested interests do not get powerful enough to be able to control the narrative.
Good evening, Gauri. Thank you for having me. And of course, it's always a pleasure with such a seasoned aviator, very knowledgeable person like Captain Kishore Chinta. I fully agree with what he's saying. And partly, I'll be honest, I would go so far as to say we ourselves have to blame, because the Indian media is continuously giving fuel to this nonsense that is being peddled. Kishore is very right. Boeing has got already $200 billion. Just to put it in perspective, the cost of 787s already sold is greater than India's total direct tax collection in the last year. So it's just to put it in magnitude of amount of money involved. And they have another equal amount of orders already in the pipeline, including those from Air India. So the money that we are talking about is very high. Okay, and these are corporations that do not just shape their own industry. These are corporations that shape governments around the world. Having said that, a couple of things I would like to bring to your notice. See, let's suppose there are 4 gold standards in the world for air accidents investigations. The US NTSB, the Canadian TSB, the UK AAIB, and the French BEA. And guess what is common to all of them? They have a 5-member board. The head of the board is invariably a legal specialist, person who is not from the judiciary but has got significant legal investigation background. One is a retired or a serving airline transport pilot. One is a certified mechanical engineer who understands aircraft systems. One is an electrical and electronics engineer, again, who understands electronic systems. And one is a human factors expert. These people together, they make up that. It is not present in our AAIB. We have been talking about that SAIB issued by FAA. In 2018, Air India was controlled by the government of India under the Ministry of Civil Aviation. It naturally brings into question the role of the regulator.
Okay.
And here you have, in the 5-member panel, 2 members are from the DGCA. Now, see, they may be people of the highest integrity. I'm not challenging their integrity, but it is natural for anybody to suspect when one agency investigates itself.
Okay.
So the other thing is, I draw parallels. Back in January this year, we had an American Airlines plane crash into a military helicopter at Ronald Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C.
Right.
See the way the NTSB, they held a report, they held a briefing at 3 days, they held a briefing at 7 days, they held a briefing at 15 days. They released a preliminary report. Guess what? They still did not say who is at fault. They didn't even say we have the data.
That's a very important point you're making, sir. Mr. Agarwal, that's a very important point you're making, and a very relevant comparison to be able to just understand how things can actually, be addressed from here on. And Captain Kishore, come in there, the parallel that Mr. Devesh drew there in terms of the crash that took place earlier in the year in Washington, the regular updates that came in that did not allow any potential source-based leaks or vested interests to be able to run the agenda or narrative, is a lesson and a learning. Now, what needs to be done from here on? Yes, the aviation minister is very clear. NTSP has come out and said, do not succumb to any of these premature source-based vested interest sort of leaks. But going forward, what should be our roadmap? Because that final investigation report is important for us, because that is what is going to drive our future agenda when it comes to ensuring aviation safety, and also ensuring that whatever happened, whoever was responsible in the particular air crash is brought to book.
Like I said, the AAIB has already said that they will be issuing press briefings as and when more significant information will be coming.
They said technical details as and when they come, they'll keep sharing. Yeah, yes, sir.
Exactly. But to quell what is happening right now, like I mentioned earlier, to dispel any doubt whatsoever about the pilots who are not around to defend themselves, all the pilot bodies like ALPA, ICPA, FIP, everyone's been saying, in unison saying the same thing. Do not put a finger towards the pilots without adequate evidence. Okay, let's take, for example, yes, they were to blame. Please prove it. Without that, please say there is not an iota of doubt that the pilots are to be blamed at this stage, and the AAIB is duty bound to quell these rumors through a press release with adequate data, shutting up everyone who's saying otherwise.
Okay.
It is
now,
mandatory.
Captain Kishore, then let me be the devil's advocate here. Let me be the devil's advocate here.
Not just to the pilots. Ma'am, we owe it to the entire aviation community.
Of course.
Imagine the number of pilots who are flying out there, who have probably flown with Captain Sumit Sabharwal or Clive Kundar, and they are out there flying. Imagine what you're doing to them and their, mental state.
Everybody.
By, making such...
But Captain Kishore, let me be the devil's advocate here, sir. Let me be the devil's advocate here. In terms of the fact that the government has been transparent in terms of the entire AAIB report being put out, it has said that this is preliminary, this is the immediate and findings that we have. We do not know more than this. NTSB also supports that. Likewise, the ministers have come out, government representatives have all come out and said that do not listen into what the bogey of pilot action theory that's being pushed is concerned. What more can they possibly do besides maybe a few regular updates, which they may say can only come as and when there are technical updates to share?
See, the cockpit voice recorder data is readily available. That one sentence, one pilot said this and one pilot responded he didn't, is what has been the main source of this entire theory. What is stopping the AAIB from putting out the CVR record out there and say it is being analyzed further to correlate with all other inputs available? It will quell all doubts. That's what everyone's been asking for.
Indeed. So that one single decision and move by AAIB, by the government, could actually ensure that these web of speculative lies that are being pushed right now could actually come and end, could actually be put to end. Mr. Agarwal, why is it that that is not being shared right now? What do you think could be the logic and the reason?
There has been a tradition in this country to conduct investigations, especially on government agencies, in a kind of air of secrecy. Why do we know so much about the crash in America? Guess what? You can openly listen to the ATC. You cannot transmit on ATC channels. In India, it is prohibited. Most of the world allows it. So, people already have a feeling of sort of trust and that we can access information. In India, there seems to be a mindset that let us protect information. Oh, this is privilege, that is privilege. And by keeping it away from the people, I prove myself to be a little superior to them. The other thing I feel that the AAIB must do is bring in a pilot, bring in a mechanical engineer, and make them part of the investigative panel, which has like a vote on the panel and on a vote on how the report is written. Because that is what is going to bring an air of transparency. I'm not saying that the AAIB is not competent. I am not saying that this thing there. What is happening is there is a feeling that they are not transparent.
Okay.
And as you say, as exactly what Kishore said, it's a 30-second flight. Okay, it is not difficult to transcribe the cockpit voice recorder of a 30-second flight. It will be at the most 2 pages. So why do you? The best way to quell these is that
you release the recording. Release the recording, put an end to speculation.
Yeah, if it is possible, release the actual recording itself. If not, release the transcript.
Okay.
Automatically, it वो बोलते हैं हिंदी भी से ना दूध का दूध पानी का पानी हो जाएगा. That everything will come out in the open. If it is a pilot to blame, it will come out in the open. If it is an aircraft to blame, it will come out in the open. If it is something else to blame, we are still investigating it. There is nobody has said. See, aircraft investigations, and I know Captain Kishore Chinta is an aircraft investigator himself. He's a certified trained accident investigator. Aircraft accidents begin with a very simple premise. We are going to include every possibility that created this situation, and we will continue to eliminate till we reach the one possibility that exists. And that is what takes time. People, they say, oh, this, Japan Airlines, All Nippon Airlines had a dual engine shutdown in the year 2019 on a 787. Of course, they were powered by Rolls-Royce engines. These are Gen X engines, but it is the same platform. And guess what? Japan's Accident Investigation Board in the last 6 years has not released a report.
Okay.
What is holding that report back? Why are the Wall Street journals and everybody else of the world...
What takes months and years suddenly takes just hours and days for Wall Street Journal and Reuters and their ilk. That's what you're saying, and that's an important point. But I have just one final point and a final question to ask Captain Kishore here. Which is that, and I'm speaking and talking like what viewers of this broadcast would be thinking, that here is an air crash which is a global probe in the sense that the American aviation, the British aviation, all of them are participating. The effort is to find out what really happened, ensure it doesn't happen ever again, to ensure those 260 people that died in the horrific air crash do get justice. Now, in the midst of this, while we talk about A, better transparency, while we talk about B, the structure of the committee that is probing this, that just puts more questions, doesn't it, Captain Kishore, instead of answering in terms of where do we go from here, given the fact that, as I said, this is a probe where there are many international stakeholders who are attached as well.
Absolutely, ma'am. The AAIB preliminary report does mention in the passing that subject matter experts in terms of pilots and engineers, aviation medicine specialists and others would be included as part of the investigation from time to time. A good way to move forward would be to assuage the public and the aviation community who are these subject matter experts, whether they're qualified on type or not. That would add transparency to the whole investigation panel itself. And second thing, in para 10 of the preliminary report, it says communications. If you can list out the ATC communications with the time and the event, you could just add one more column and say the CVR recorded this at the same time. It makes life all that more easier.
Indeed.
And it would put everything. You can add an addendum. You can say addendum to preliminary report dated so and so, and release timestamp wises the cockpit voice recording. What is the event which happened? And say in the footnote saying that further analysis is being done to correlate with the flight data recorder data and other events which happened. That adds credibility and transparency through the whole process.
And reduces or eliminates the potential and possibility of these source-based leaks that are somehow only coming to these Western media outlets who only have a single theory to push, even as there is now a legal case that has been pushed or is likely to be pushed with the pilots' body taking this up legally, because they are at the end of the day maligning the 2 dead pilots who cannot defend themselves and are waiting for justice as well. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of News at 6, where we discuss, well, how is it that only one single theory is being pushed by Western media outlets, even as there is now every credible stakeholder asking for only official version to be taken and not these source-based leaks.